The rain drummed against the windows of the downtown cafe as Marcus Sterling sat alone at a corner table, his expensive suit damp from the walk through the storm. At 41, he had built a technology empire worth hundreds of millions. But tonight on his birthday, he found himself eating dinner by himself in a half-empty restaurant, surrounded by the conversations and laughter of families he would never be part of. Marcus had dismissed his assistant's suggestion to organize a birthday celebration, just as he had done for the past 5 years since his divorce. Business associates sent perfunctory cards. His board of directors acknowledged the date with professional courtesy. But there was no one in his life who actually cared whether he celebrated another year or simply let it pass unnoticed. As Marcus finished his meal and prepared to return to his empty penthouse, he noticed a small commotion near the cafe entrance. A woman with blonde hair was shaking out her umbrella while a little girl, perhaps 4 years old, peered around her mother's legs at the warm, bright interior of the restaurant. "Mama, can we stay here until the rain stops?" the child asked in a small voice. "Just for a few minutes, sweetheart," the woman replied, though Marcus could hear the exhaustion in her voice. "We need to catch the last bus home." Marcus watched as the mother and daughter found a table near the window. The woman ordered only a hot chocolate for the little girl and a coffee for herself, clearly stretching their limited budget to find shelter from the storm. The child, meanwhile, was captivating everyone around her with her bright chatter and infectious smile as she pressed her nose against the rain-streaked glass. "Look, Mama," the little girl said, pointing outside. "The rain is making rivers on the window. It is like the sky is crying happy tears." Marcus found himself drawn to the child's innocent perspective on what had seemed like a miserable evening. Her presence transformed the dreary atmosphere of the cafe, and he noticed other diners smiling at her observations and boundless curiosity. When the cafe staff brought out a small cupcake with a single candle for another customer's birthday celebration, the little girl watched with wide eyes as the brief party unfolded at a nearby table. "Is it someone's birthday, Mama?" she whispered loudly. "Yes, darling, but we should let them celebrate quietly," her mother replied, though Marcus could see her own wistful expression as she watched the simple joy of the birthday moment. As the other party finished their celebration and prepared to leave, the little girl suddenly slipped away from her table and approached Marcus with the confident friendliness that only children possess. "Excuse me, mister," she said, standing beside his chair. "Are you eating dinner all by yourself?" Marcus looked down at this small person who had noticed what the adults around him had ignored, that he was completely alone. "Yes, I am," he replied gently. "That makes me sad," the child said with the directness that comes before social filters develop. "Nobody should have to eat by themselves, especially on their birthday." Marcus felt his breath catch. "How did you know it was my birthday?" The little girl tilted her head, studying his face with the serious attention children give to important questions. "You have birthday eyes," she said simply. "Birthday eyes?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious. "Yes. They look happy and sad at the same time, like when you want to make a wish but you do not have any candles." She paused, then brightened considerably. "Wait right here." Before Marcus could respond, the child hurried back to her mother's table and whispered something urgently in her ear. The woman looked over at Marcus with obvious concern, then nodded at her daughter with a gentle smile. The little girl returned to Marcus's table carrying a small paper napkin wrapped around something precious. "I was saving this for my birthday last week," she announced, carefully unwrapping a slightly squished cupcake with a single bent candle. "I wanted to keep it because it was so pretty, but I think you need it more than I do." Marcus stared at the offered cupcake, his throat tightening as he realized that this child was giving him what was probably her most treasured possession, a memento from her own birthday celebration. "I saved you some cake, mister," she said solemnly, as if sharing birthday cake with lonely adults was the most natural thing in the world. "You can make a wish if you want to. Birthday wishes are very important." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest as he looked at this little girl who had noticed his loneliness and responded with such pure, uncomplicated generosity. The gesture was so unexpected, so genuinely kind, that for the first time in years, he felt tears threaten to spill over. "What is your name, sweetheart?" he managed to ask. I am Lily, she replied, settling into the chair across from him as if they were old friends. What is your name? I am Marcus, he said, accepting the precious cupcake with hands that trembled slightly. Lily, this is the most thoughtful gift anyone has given me in a very long time. Lily beamed with satisfaction. Do you want to make a wish? I can help you think of a good one if you want. Marcus looked at this child who had transformed his loneliest birthday into something he would remember forever, and realized that his wish had already come true. Someone had noticed him, cared about his happiness, and reminded him that kindness still existed in the world. Actually, Lily, I think you already granted my wish, Marcus said softly. Really? What was it? I wished for someone to remind me that birthdays are about more than just getting older, Marcus replied. They are about celebrating that we are here, that we matter to someone, and that there is still goodness in the world. Lily nodded sagely. That is a very good wish. Are you going to eat your cake now? As Marcus lit the bent candle and made his official birthday wish, he was aware of Lily's mother watching from across the cafe with tears in her eyes. When he looked over and nodded his thanks, she smiled and mouthed thank you in return, understanding that her daughter had given this stranger something precious. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the newly opened Lily's Learning Center, a state-of-the-art facility for underprivileged children that he had funded in honor of a little girl who had taught him that the most valuable gifts cannot be purchased, but must be freely given from the heart. Lily and her mother Sarah were among the first families to benefit from the center's programs, though they never knew that the anonymous benefactor was the lonely man who had received a birthday cake from a child's generous spirit on a rainy evening. You know what I learned from that little girl? Marcus said to his assistant as they watched children play in the center's bright, cheerful rooms. I learned that the best birthdays are not about what we receive, but about recognizing the gifts we have been given all along. Sometimes it takes a child to remind us that we are never truly alone if we keep our hearts open to the kindness that surrounds us. Sometimes the most important birthday presents come wrapped in the innocent generosity of someone who sees our need and responds with love, reminding us that every year we are given is an opportunity to notice the goodness in the world and to pass it along to someone who needs it even more than we do.